My dear child, I am pulling you out of that city. And I need you to pack your bags quietly, because what I am moving you toward cannot be announced before it is obeyed. Do not scroll past this. What I am about to say is not a general message about change. This is a specific, whispered, personally addressed departure order for someone who has been feeling something shift inside them that they cannot explain to anyone around them. You have been waking up in a place that once felt like home and feeling like a stranger in your own geography. The streets are familiar, the walls are known, but something in you has outgrown the coordinates you are standing on, and the outgrowing has been producing a restlessness you keep dismissing as ingratitude. It is not ingratitude. It is migration instinct, and I am the one who placed it inside you. A bird does not wait for winter to announce itself before it begins moving. Something inside the bird, a sensitivity to invisible shifts in light, in atmospheric pressure, in the magnetic orientation of where it belongs next, activates before the external evidence catches up. The bird does not explain the feeling to the other birds. It does not wait for the flock to validate the instinct. It responds quietly. It prepares silently. It begins the internal preparation for departure, while the environment around it still looks like the season that is ending, rather than the season that is approaching. My beloved child, you are the bird. The instinct has been firing for weeks, and the season you are standing in has already changed in the spiritual realm, even though the natural realm has not yet updated to reflect it. Pack quietly. Tell no one yet. What I reveal next is why the departure must be silent, and what is waiting in the coordinates I am pulling you toward. Type migration if you have been feeling an unexplainable restlessness in a place that should still feel like home. And God just told you the feeling was never ingratitude, but a migration instinct He placed inside you because the season has already changed. Before we go any further, I need to tell you something that genuinely surprised me. A neuroscientist discovered a simple 7-second technique that actually rewires how your brain processes thoughts. And when I tried it, the difference was almost unsettling. My focus sharpened, ideas started connecting faster, and that mental fog gone. This isn't manifestation nonsense. It's backed by real brain science. And thousands of people are already seeing results. But here's the catch. Only 5 spots are left. If something inside you is saying, try it, trust that instinct. Click the link in the description or pinned comment before it's too late. The migration instinct activated inside you weeks ago. And the reason you could not identify it as divine instruction is because it did not arrive as a voice, but as a feeling. My beloved child, I do not always speak in sentences. Sometimes I speak in sensations, a tightening in a place that used to feel spacious, a restlessness that attaches to geography rather than circumstance, the specific, impossible-to-source feeling that the air you are breathing has changed composition, even though no one around you seems to be breathing anything different. The feeling is a frequency, and only the bird it was meant for can detect it. My dear one, I need you to understand why the migration instinct arrives before the visible evidence. A bird that waits for winter to arrive before departing will be caught in conditions it was not designed to survive. The instinct fires early, precisely because the departure must precede the evidence, because the evidence will arrive as confirmation for those who moved, not as instruction for those who waited. You have been waiting for evidence. The instinct has been firing without it. The other birds around you are not feeling what you are feeling. This is the part that has been making you question the instinct, because if the season were truly changing, everyone should feel it. Every bird in the same geography should detect the same atmospheric shift and respond with the same preparatory urgency. But they are calm, they are settled, they are building deeper into the place you are feeling pulled away from, and their calm has been making your restlessness feel like malfunction rather than sensitivity. Your sensitivity is not malfunction, it is design. And the reason the other birds are not feeling the shift is because the migration order was not issued to them. It was issued to you, specifically, personally, through a frequency that only the bird whose internal compass was calibrated for this exact departure can receive. This message was not released for everyone who feels restless. This was aimed at the one bird whose instinct is firing on a frequency only heaven can broadcast, and whose departure has already been authorized in the spiritual realm, while the natural realm still looks like the season that is ending. Type only "I feel it" if you have been questioning your restlessness, because no one around you seems to feel what you are feeling. And God just confirmed that the migration signal was not issued to everyone, but was broadcast on a frequency only your internal compass was calibrated to receive. I have been watching the instinct fire inside you for weeks, and I have been monitoring the war between the signal and the guilt with the attention of a God who placed the signal and needs it to win, my dear one, not from a distance, from inside the compass, the internal navigation system that has been producing the restlessness your conscious mind keeps trying to override. I am positioned inside that system, not as a passive observer recording data. As the engineer who calibrated the compass before you were placed in this geography, and who has been updating its heading as the season changed around you. The heading has been pointing away from where you are, and you have been fighting the needle. My beloved child, I watched you try to recalibrate the compass yourself. Not once, repeatedly. Every time the instinct fired and the restlessness surged, and the feeling of not belonging here pressed against your chest with an urgency you could not explain to anyone who was not feeling it. You reached for the compass and tried to reset the needle back toward the geography you are standing in, back toward the familiar, back toward the place that used to produce belonging and now produces only the memory of belonging. The needle would not reset, because the needle is responding to me, not to your preference. I chose you for this message because the war between the signal and the guilt has reached a point where the guilt is beginning to win. And if the guilt wins, you will stay in a geography whose season has already changed, while the coordinates I prepared for your next season remain empty of the one person they were measured for. The coordinates exist. They are specific. They describe a place you have not yet seen, but whose atmosphere was designed for the version of you that the current geography can no longer contain. The current place held you well when you fit inside it. You do not fit inside it anymore. And the not fitting is not a flaw in the bird. It is evidence that the bird has grown beyond the nest. Type fighting the needle if you have been trying to force yourself to feel at home in a place where the compass keeps pointing somewhere else. And God just told you the needle will not reset because it is responding to Him, not to your preference. And the geography He is pulling you toward was measured for a version of you this place can no longer contain. I know what it costs to feel like a stranger in a place that is supposed to be home, my beloved child. Not the obvious cost, the practical logistics of considering departure from a geography where your life has been constructed, where your connections are rooted, where your daily routine is embedded in the infrastructure of a city whose streets your body navigates on autopilot. That cost is real but calculable. The cost I am addressing is the one that no calculation can quantify. The cost of feeling foreign inside your own life. You wake up in a room you decorated, You drive roads you memorized. You greet people who recognize your face and speak your name. And somewhere between the waking and the driving and the greeting, a part of you separates from the experience and watches from a slight distance, as though the person performing these familiar actions is wearing a life that no longer fits the body it was tailored for. My child, the gap between the life and the body has been growing, and the growing has been lonely. I watched the loneliness compound in a specific way that only people who feel foreign in familiar places can understand. It is not the loneliness of isolation. You have people around you. It is the loneliness of misrecognition, the feeling of being known by a version of you that no longer exists in a geography that responds to who you were rather than who you have become. The people are not wrong. They are accurate to the version they know. But the version they know outgrew the geography months ago, and the person walking through the familiar streets is a migrating bird, still sitting in last season's nest, being addressed by last season's name. The loneliness is the gap between who they see and who you have become. And the gap widens every day you remain in coordinates that the compass is no longer pointing toward. You have been carrying this alone because explaining it requires a vocabulary the other birds do not possess, and the carrying has been exhausting. The hardest part of the migration instinct has not been the restlessness. It has been the guilt of feeling restless in a place where other people are perfectly content. My dear child, you have been measuring your restlessness against their contentment, and the measurement produces a verdict that your mind has been repeating without challenge. Something is wrong with me, because if this place is good enough for them, it should be good enough for me. If they can build here and settle here and flourish here, then my inability to do the same is evidence of ingratitude rather than instinct, of instability rather than sensitivity, of a flaw in the bird rather than a difference in the bird's design. The guilt has been heavier than the restlessness, and the guilt has been keeping you in the nest. My beloved child, I watched the guilt install itself as a governance system over the instinct. Every time the compass needle pointed away from the current geography, the guilt intercepted the signal and translated it into a self-accusation. The restlessness says move. The guilt says ungrateful. The instinct says this place has ended its season for you. The guilt says this place has been good to you, and leaving is betrayal. The guilt is using goodness to argue against purpose, and goodness and purpose are not the same coordinates. A place can be good without being permanent. A season can be fruitful without being final. A geography can serve the version of you that arrived without being able to serve the version of you that outgrew it. The goodness of the place does not invalidate the instinct to leave it, and the instinct to leave does not dishonor the goodness of the season that is ending. My dear one, you are not betraying the nest by responding to the migration signal. You are honoring the God who placed you in the nest for the season the nest could hold you, and is now whispering, pack your bags, because the next season requires coordinates the nest cannot provide. Type not in gratitude if you have been silencing the migration instinct with guilt, measuring your restlessness against the contentment of people around you. And God just confirmed that your inability to settle in a place where others flourish is not a flaw in the bird, but a difference in the bird's design. The restlessness was never a malfunction in your system. It was the earliest, most accurate signal that the season shifted before the weather changed, my beloved one. I need to permanently reclassify the feeling you have been carrying as a burden. It is not a burden. It is a compass reading, and compass readings that point away from the current location are not errors in the compass. They are information about the correct heading that the current location cannot provide. My child, the bird's instinct is the most reliable navigation system in the natural world, not because the bird understands atmospheric science, because the bird does not need to understand it. The instinct bypasses comprehension entirely, operating on a frequency below conscious analysis, producing a response that the bird's rational mind cannot explain, but its body cannot resist. Your body has been producing the response, and your mind has been overriding it with guilt. The guilt said the restlessness was character failure. The truth says the restlessness was the earliest indicator of a divine relocation that has already been authorized in the realm where seasons change before they change in the realm you can see. You were feeling the new season arriving before anyone around you could detect it, because your compass was calibrated to a frequency their compasses were not tuned to receive. Different birds migrate at different times. Some are designed for year-round residence. Some are designed for seasonal movement. And the birds who are designed for seasonal movement will always feel the shift before the birds who are designed to stay, because the migration frequency activates only in the species that was engineered to move. My dear one, you were engineered to move, not permanently. There will be a geography that holds you for longer than this one. But this geography has completed its season in your life, and the feeling you have been dismissing as instability is the divine engineering of a bird, whose design includes a compass that the resident birds were never given. Yours restlessness was your most faithful compass, and the compass was right the entire time. The compass just received an updated heading, and the coordinates it is now pointing toward are more specific than the general away from here signal it has been producing for weeks. My beloved child, something shifted in the last few days. The restlessness that was formless, the vague, directionless, impossible to explain feeling that this place has ended its season without telling you where the next season lives. That restlessness just acquired a shape, a pull toward something rather than away from something, a magnetic orientation that is producing not just the feeling of departure, but the first faint impression of a destination. The compass upgraded from away to toward, and toward changes everything. My dear one, I have been withholding the specific coordinates until your heart was ready to receive them, without the guilt converting the destination into another accusation. A bird that receives coordinates while the guilt is still governing the compass will process the destination as further evidence of ingratitude, rather than hearing it as the divine instruction it actually is. The guilt had to be addressed before the heading could be released. The guilt has been addressed, and the heading is now active. I have been preparing coordinates in a geography you have not yet visited, but whose atmosphere I designed for the exact wingspan the current city has been compressing. Your wingspan, the full, expanded, uncompressed reach of who you are becoming, requires an airspace that the current geography's ceiling cannot provide. You have been flying in a space with a low ceiling, and your wings have been folding inward to accommodate walls that were never designed for a bird of your migration pattern. My child, the coordinates I am releasing into your compass point toward a geography with no ceiling over the airspace your wings were designed to occupy. The walls are wider, the sky is higher, and the atmospheric composition of the new location carries the exact elements your next season requires to produce what this season was always preparing you to carry. Type toward if the restlessness just shifted from a vague feeling of away to a specific pull toward something you cannot yet name, and you believe the compass just received updated coordinates from the God who withheld the heading until the guilt was addressed. I am pulling you out of that city. And the title says, pack your bags quietly, because the migration I am initiating in your life requires the sacred secrecy of a bird that begins its departure before the flock notices the shift. My dear one, the quiet is not deception, it is protection. A bird that announces its departure before the departure is underway invites two responses from the birds that are staying: resistance and projection. The resident birds will resist the departure because the leaving of one bird disrupts the social architecture of the flock, and the resident birds will project their own fear of change onto the departing bird, interpreting the migration instinct as instability, as impulsiveness, as the evidence of a bird that cannot commit to a geography the way stable birds do. The announcement invites opinions that the instinct cannot survive contact with during the fragile stage of preparation. My beloved child, this is directly connected to the title and to your specific journey. The people in your current geography are good people. They love you from the version of you they know, and their love, expressed through the lens of their own contentment in a geography that still fits them, will produce counsel that contradicts the compass heading you just received. Not from malice, from the sincere belief that what works for them should work for you. Their counsel will sound like wisdom, and it will feel like chains. Pack quietly, not because the departure is shameful, because the departure is sacred, and sacred instructions are not submitted to committee before they are obeyed. They are received in the quiet of a bird whose compass is responding to a frequency the committee cannot hear, and they are executed with the calm, deliberate, non-dramatic obedience of someone who received a whispered order from a god who does not shout departure instructions across a geography that is not invited to participate in the decision. My child, this is between you and the compass answers to me. The preparation has already begun inside you, and the internal packing that your spirit has been doing without your conscious mind's full awareness is nearly complete, my beloved child. Have you noticed the quiet detaching? Not dramatic, not a severing of relationships or an emotional withdrawal that others would detect as distancing. Something subtler, a softening of the grip, the specific, barely perceptible loosening that occurs when a bird's talons begin releasing from a branch they have been wrapped around for a long season. Not by force, but by the involuntary relaxation that migration instinct produces in the muscles that govern holding. You have been releasing without knowing you are releasing. And the releasing is the final stage of preparation. My dear one, the internal packing includes everything the compass needs you to carry into the next geography, and excludes everything the current geography added to your weight that the next season does not require. Not every connection you formed here travels with you. Not every pattern you developed here belongs in the new coordinates. The instinct is sorting silently beneath your conscious awareness, separating the essential from the geographical. The essential travels, the geographical stays. The sorting is almost complete, and the lightness you have been feeling alongside the restlessness is the weight of the geographical attachments being removed from the migration pack. Everything has been building toward the moment of departure. The instinct that fired weeks ago, the guilt that tried to override it, the compass that received the heading, the quiet detaching that softened the grip, the internal sorting that separated the essential from the geographical. And now, the final moment before the wings extend and the branch releases and the air receives a bird whose migration has been authorized by the only voice whose departure orders do not require the flock's approval. The wings are ready, the branch is releasing, and the air of the next geography is already anticipating the arrival of the bird it was designed to receive. Type wings ready if you have felt a quiet detaching happening inside you, a softening of the grip on things you once held tightly, and you now believe the migration instinct has been silently preparing you for a departure your conscious mind is only now catching up to. The branch just released, and the bird that has been gripping a geography whose season ended weeks ago is airborne for the first time, carried not by certainty about the destination, but by trust in the compass that has never once pointed wrong. My beloved child, this is the moment the talons open and the branch falls away, and the weight that was holding the bird in position becomes the absence of weight that allows the wings to do what they were always designed to do. The moment between holding and flying. The moment where the current geography is beneath you for the first time rather than around you, and the perspective shift reveals something the branch-level view could never have shown. You were too close to see it. You can see it now. From the air, the geography you are leaving looks different than it did from inside it. The walls that felt like structure look like limitation from above. The ceiling that felt like shelter looks like compression from a bird whose wings are fully extended for the first time. And the nest that felt like home, that genuinely was home for the season it held you, looks proportionally smaller than you imagined, because the version of you that occupied it has grown beyond its dimensions in ways the branch-level view could not reveal. My child, I am pulling you out of that city. The title carries those words because the departure is not a suggestion. It is a divine relocation initiated by the same God who placed you in that geography for the season that just ended and is now placing you in a new one for the season that just began. The instinct was real. The compass was accurate. The restlessness was the earliest signal of a departure that the spiritual realm authorized before the natural realm caught up. And the bird that is now airborne, carried by wings that the old geography was compressing and guided by a compass that the guilt was trying to override, is heading toward coordinates that were prepared before the migration instinct ever fired. You are not restless anymore. You are in flight. Now that the wings are open and the flight has begun, everything about the restlessness is being retroactively reclassified. From malfunction to migration, from ingratitude to instinct, from flaw to design, my dear child. This is what happens when a bird that has been gripping a branch finally releases and feels the air receive it. The entire narrative changes. Every sensation that was filed under wrong with me during the gripping season is being refiled under right on time. The restlessness that was labeled ingratitude is reclassified as divine sensitivity. The feeling of not belonging is reclassified as belonging somewhere else. The guilt that said you should be able to stay where others are content is reclassified as the resistance that always precedes obedience in a bird whose migration requires leaving what the resident birds are building. Every label changes when the perspective changes, and the perspective just changed permanently. My beloved child, the air you are flying through right now carries a different composition than the air you were breathing at branch level. Not metaphorically, spiritually. The atmospheric density of the space between the old geography and the new one is lighter than what you have been breathing for months, because the air at migration altitude is not compressed by the walls and ceilings that the geography below was imposing on a bird whose wingspan required more room than the nest could offer. You are breathing differently already. And the breathing is producing a clarity your compressed season could not generate. The reclassification is not just emotional, it is strategic. because a bird that understands its restlessness as migration instinct rather than personal failure approaches the new geography with confidence rather than the residual shame of someone who believes they fled a place they should have been able to stay. You did not flee. You migrated, and migration is not escape. It is the obedient response of a species that was designed to move when the compass heading changes. Type reclassified if you can feel every label, the guilt assigned to your restlessness being rewritten in real time. Ingratitude becoming instinct, instability becoming sensitivity, the inability to settle becoming the design of a bird whose compass was always pointing toward coordinates the current geography could never provide. Let me show you what the new geography looks like from the altitude you are now flying at. Because what the compass has been pointing toward is not a version of what you left, but a dimension of what you have never experienced. My dear one, the first thing that changes is the fit. You have been living in a geography that required you to fold your wings inward to navigate its corridors. Every room you entered demanded a reduction. Every relationship you maintained required a compression of the full version of you into a version the geography's dimensions could accommodate. The folding became so habitual that you forgot your wingspan was larger than what the current space was permitting. The new geography does not require folding, and the first time you extend fully you will feel muscles activate that the old geography kept dormant. My beloved child, the atmosphere of the new coordinates carries elements that the old geography did not contain. Not because the old geography was bad, because the old geography was designed for a different species of assignment than the one your next season carries. The nutrients in the air, the connections in the soil, the spiritual composition of the environment, all of it was calibrated for a bird whose wingspan matches yours at full extension, rather than compressed accommodation. You are going to breathe and feel your lungs fill to a capacity you forgot they possessed. Because the old air was thinner than you realized, you adapted to the thinness the way a person at high altitude adapts to reduced oxygen. The adaptation became normal. The new geography's atmosphere will feel almost overwhelming at first, because full oxygen after extended thin air produces a rush your system has not processed in years. The rush is not too much. It is the right amount. And the right amount feels like too much only to a system that has been surviving on less than it was designed to receive. People in the new geography are going to recognize your wingspan before you finish introducing yourself. Because the environment you are entering was designed for birds of your exact migration pattern, my beloved child. In the old geography, you were the only bird with this wingspan, the only one whose internal compass was calibrated for seasonal migration, the only one whose restlessness was signaling a departure that no other bird in the flock could detect. And the isolation of being the only bird feeling the shift produced the loneliness of misrecognition. Being known by a version the geography required rather than the version the compass was. Developing. In the new geography, you will encounter other birds who migrated, and the recognition will be instantaneous. My child, there are people in the coordinates you are heading toward who felt the same restlessness in their previous geography, who dismissed it as ingratitude, who fought the compass, who were told by resident birds that the instinct was instability, and who eventually obeyed the migration signal and arrived at the same coordinates your compass is now pointing toward, carrying the same wingspan, the same sensitivity, the same design that requires seasonal movement to fulfill the assignments their stationary geography could not contain. You are heading toward your flock, not the flock you left, the flock you were always designed to migrate with. And these connections, the ones that form between birds who share the same migration pattern, carry a depth that geography-based connections cannot replicate. Because birds who migrated understand the cost of obeying an instinct the resident birds could not validate. The understanding produces a bond that shared geography alone never generates. My dear one, the relationships forming at the new coordinates will feel different from anything the old geography provided. Not because the old relationships were inferior, because the new ones are migration-matched. And migration-matched connections produce a resonance that resident connections, however loving, cannot access. Type, my flock, if you believe that the coordinates your compass is pointing toward contain people who share your migration pattern. Birds who felt the same restlessness, fought the same guilt, obeyed the same instinct. And the recognition between you will be instantaneous, because the design that made you move is the same design that made them move first. I need you to understand why I designed you as a migratory bird, rather than a resident one, my beloved child, because the design reveals something about the assignment I embedded in your existence that a stationary life could never fulfill. Resident birds produce resident impact. They build deep into one geography. They establish roots that intertwine with the soil of one location. They produce fruit that feeds the ecosystem surrounding one nest. And the impact is valuable, sustained, local, deeply embedded in the community that forms around the permanence of their presence. That is not your assignment. And understanding this changes how you evaluate the restlessness permanently. My child, migratory birds produce corridor impact. They carry seeds from one geography to another. They pollinate ecosystems that resident birds cannot reach. They connect environments that have no connection to each other, except the flight path of a bird, whose migration route passes through both. The impact of a migratory bird is not less than a resident bird's. It is different in kind, wider in reach, cross-pollinating in nature. You were designed to carry what you developed in the old geography into the new one, not to leave the old season behind as though it produced nothing, to transport its seeds, the skills, the insights, the spiritual development, the specific strengths that the old geography cultivated in you, into a new ecosystem that needs what only a bird who has been where you have been can deliver. My dear one, the old geography was not wasted. It was a growing station, the place where the seeds you are now carrying were developed to the maturity level required for planting in the new soil. Without the old geography, the seeds would not exist. Without the new geography, the seeds would never be planted. You are the corridor between two geographies that need each other, but can only be connected by a bird whose migration route passes through both. That is why you were designed to move, not because staying was beneath you, because your assignment requires the flight. The doubt that is surfacing right now is asking the question every migratory bird asks at the midpoint of the flight. What if I am wrong, and the compass is leading me away from where I actually belong, my child? It sounds like this. What if the restlessness was just restlessness? What if the migration instinct was actually the instability the guilt said it was? What if I uproot my life based on a feeling that turns out to be nothing more than the ordinary dissatisfaction that follows people who cannot be content with what they have? What if I arrive at the new coordinates and discover that the same restlessness surfaces there, proving that the problem was never the geography but the bird? That doubt just collapsed the distinction between migratory instinct and chronic dissatisfaction. And I am going to separate them with one diagnostic question. My beloved child, chronic dissatisfaction follows a person from geography, to geography, producing the same restlessness in every location, because the restlessness is sourced in the person rather than the place. But your restlessness did not follow you here. It was absent when you arrived. It was absent during the season this geography fit you, and it appeared, specifically, datably, traceably, at the point where the geography season ended and the compass heading changed. The restlessness has a start date, and chronic dissatisfaction does not carry start dates. If you can identify the approximate moment the feeling began, the week or month where the air changed, and the streets that felt like home began feeling like corridors, and the walls that felt like structure began feeling like compression, then the restlessness is geographical rather than personal. It belongs to the place rather than the bird. Your restlessness has a start date. Chronic dissatisfaction would have been present from the beginning. The fact that it appeared mid-season is the diagnostic evidence that what you are feeling is not a personality flaw, but a compass heading change, issued by a god who updates the navigation of migratory birds when the season shifts. Type start date if you can identify the approximate moment the restlessness began. And the fact that it appeared mid-season rather than from the beginning is the evidence the doubt cannot process, because chronic dissatisfaction does not carry start dates, but migration instincts do. During every day, you dismissed the instinct as ingratitude. I was not standing at the new coordinates, waiting for you to figure out the departure on your own. I was inside the compass, whispering the heading while the guilt was trying to mute the signal. My beloved child, you imagined a god who installed the migration instinct and then stepped back to see whether the bird would follow it on its own, who placed the compass inside you, calibrated it to the correct heading, and returned to managing the atmosphere, while you navigated the war between the signal and the guilt, without divine involvement in the outcome. I was never uninvolved. I was in the war. My child, every moment the guilt pressed down on the instinct I was pressing back. Not with force that would override your agency. The migration is yours to obey or refuse. With a gentle, persistent, compass-level pressure of a heading that would not change no matter how many times the guilt attempted to reset the needle. The guilt said stay. The compass said move. And the compass was louder, not because it shouted, but because the frequency it operates on is deeper than the frequency guilt can reach. Guilt operates on the surface layer of your psychology. The compass operates on the deepest layer of your design. And design outlasts psychology every time. There were nights when the guilt was winning, when the surface arguments, the responsibilities, the connections, the fear of disrupting what was stable, accumulated enough weight to press the instinct below conscious awareness for hours at a time. In those hours you felt settled, not at peace, settled. The settling that occurs when the thing pressing against the norm is temporarily suppressed, and the norm reasserts itself as though nothing was ever disrupting it. But the instinct resurfaced every time. Because compass headings installed by divine engineering do not respond to surface-level suppression. They wait beneath the guilt. And when the guilt exhausts its arguments, they rise again. The instinct always rose again. Because I was beneath it, holding the heading, refusing to let the needle rest anywhere except the coordinates I prepared. I know the specific moment the restlessness first appeared in your body, my dear one. And I know it because I am the one who activated the compass heading at that exact moment. You remember the approximate season. But I remember the specific day, the specific hour, the specific interaction that served as the environmental trigger for the migration instinct's activation. You were in the middle of something ordinary, a routine moment in the geography that still felt like home at the time. And something shifted, not dramatically. A micro-shift, a sensation so subtle it registered in your body before your mind could identify what had changed. My beloved child, what changed was the heading. I updated the compass in that moment, and your body detected the update before your consciousness could process it. I know why I chose that moment. The season in your current geography had reached the precise point where one more day of productive residence would transition into the first day of diminishing return. The geography had given you everything it was designed to give, every skill it was calibrated to develop, every relationship it was positioned to form, every strength it was engineered to build in you through the specific conditions of its climate. And the moment the final deposit was made, the geography's assignment in your life was complete. The compass updated the second the deposit was finalized. Not a day before, not a day after. I know the name of the city you are leaving. I know the specific streets that will feel the strangest to walk for the last time. I know the faces that your departure will affect, and the conversations that your leaving will produce. And the God who knows every detail of the geography you are exiting is the same God who knows every detail of the geography you are entering, because both were designed by the same hands for the same bird at different seasons of the same migration. Type that exact moment if God just identified the specific day the restlessness began. A moment so precise, you can almost remember the ordinary interaction that triggered it. And you now know compass was updated by divine engineering at the exact second the current geography completed its final deposit into your life. Now that the flight is underway and the compass heading is confirmed, there is one thing I need you to do, my beloved child, and it is the instruction that separates a migratory bird from a fleeing one. Leave with honor. The sacred secrecy of the departure does not mean the departure is hostile. Pack quietly does not mean pack angrily. The instruction to tell no one yet is a timing instruction, not a relational one. There will be a moment to speak. There will be a season to explain. But the explanation comes after the obedience, not before it. Because a bird that explains before departing submits the compass heading to a committee whose feedback will complicate an instruction that was designed to be simple. First obey, then explain, in that order. My child, when the time comes to speak, and it will come, because I do not design departures that permanently sever what was genuinely planted. Speak from the posture of a bird that is grateful for the branch rather than resentful of its limitations. The branch held you. The nest sheltered you. The geography served you during the season it was assigned to your development. The departure does not retroactively convert the good season into a bad one. Honor the geography on your way out, not by staying. By acknowledging what it gave you, while trusting what the compass is leading you toward. And in the practical dimension of the departure, the logistics, the timing, the sequence of steps that convert internal migration into external movement, do not rush. The compass heading is confirmed, but the arrival date is governed by a timeline that the bird does not need to accelerate. Migrate at the pace the instinct sets, not the pace anxiety demands. Anxiety says, hurry before the window closes. The compass says the window was opened by a God who does not close windows on birds he personally instructed to fly through them. The window stays open. Migrate at the pace of trust. You made it to the flight, my beloved child, and I need you to glide for a moment at this altitude and feel what it means to finally be moving in the direction the compass has been pointing since the day the heading changed. Feel the air, not the compressed, low-sailing, folded-wing air of a geography that required you to reduce yourself to fit its dimensions. Open air, the full wingspan, unrestricted, migration altitude air. Yasen were designed to breathe, and your wings were designed to move through. The air is different up here, and your body knows it before your mind can process the difference. The difference is permission. The air is giving you permission to be the size you actually are. I want to thank you for something the guilt almost prevented from ever happening. Thank you for feeling the instinct and not killing it. Thank you for carrying the restlessness through months of misidentifying it as ingratitude without ever fully silencing the signal beneath the labels the guilt kept applying. Thank you for the nights the compass pointed away from everything familiar, and your heart ached with the cost of what obedience would require. And you held both the ache and the heading simultaneously, without letting either one cancel the other. My dear child, holding the ache and the heading at the same time is the bravest posture a migratory bird can carry. And you carried it without anyone knowing what it was costing you. Let the tears come, not guilt tears, not restlessness tears, not the tears of a bird gripping a branch it does not belong on anymore. Flight tears. The tears of a bird that finally released the branch and felt the air catch wings that the geography had been folding inward for months. The tears of a creature doing the thing it was designed to do for the first time in a season, so long the design itself felt like a memory rather than a reality. You are flying. The compass is steady, and the God who whispered, "Pack your bags quietly," is flying beside you, guiding the heading, sustaining the altitude, and carrying every seed you developed in the old geography toward the new soil that is waiting to receive them. Type in flight if tears are forming right now, because the branch released and the air caught your wings. And the God who placed the migration instinct inside you is flying beside the bird he designed to move, guiding the compass toward coordinates that were prepared before the restlessness ever began. You're not the bird gripping the wrong branch anymore, my beloved child. That identity, the one who woke up feeling like a stranger in a geography that should have felt like home, the one who dismissed the migration instinct as ingratitude and measured the restlessness against the contentment of resident birds, whose design did not include the compass yours carries, the one who fought the needle and silenced the signal, and folded wings inward to fit inside walls that were never measured for a bird whose migration pattern requires the open sky between seasons. That identity was released alongside the branch the moment the talons opened, and the air received what the geography could no longer contain. You are a bird in flight now, and flight does not look back at the branch. The restlessness that governed your mornings, your self-assessment, your guilt, and your relationship with the geography that raised you for a season has been permanently reclassified, not as the malfunction the guilt labeled it. As the most sophisticated navigation system I install in the birds, whose assignments require more than one geography to complete. The restlessness was the compass was me, and the heading was always pointing toward coordinates that the current geography could not provide, no matter how deeply you tried to root yourself into its soil. My dear child, some birds were designed to stay. You were designed to carry. From this moment forward, you carry the identity of a migratory bird, not as a metaphor for instability, but as the most accurate description of a design whose purpose spans geographies, rather than occupying one. The seeds from the old season are in your wings. The coordinates of the new season are in your compass. The air between the two is held by a God who does not lose migratory birds mid-flight. You are not restless. You are responsive. You are not ungrateful. You are obedient. You are not fleeing. You are following. And the God who whispered, pack your bags quietly, is the same God who will whisper you have arrived when the compass heading and the landing coordinates converge on the geography whose atmosphere was always designed for the full wingspan of a bird that the old city loved well but could no longer hold. Pack quietly, fly faithfully, and trust the compass that has been pointing you toward the next season since the moment the last one completed its deposit. The branch is behind you, the air is beneath you, the heading is confirmed, and the bird whose wings are finally extended to their full span is carrying seeds between two geographies that only the flight of a divinely designed migrator can connect. Fly, my beloved child. The new coordinates are closer than the old branch ever allowed you to see. Subscribe to this channel so that every time God updates the compass heading on your life, the message reaches you before the guilt of the resident birds convinces you the instinct is wrong. You are not a restless bird anymore. You are a migratory one. And the next message carries the first signal from the new coordinates, confirming that the atmosphere there was measured for the exact wingspan the old geography was compressing. Type new coordinates if you are leaving this message permanently changed. Knowing the restlessness was a compass, the guilt was resistance to a divine heading. The geography has completed its season, and the God who whispered, "Pack your bags quietly," is the same God who designed the migration and will personally escort the bird he sent into flight toward coordinates that were prepared before the instinct ever fired.